Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite summer scares. I wanted to do a little bit of a series on my channel about summer scares, some of my favorite books, all inspired by my favorite books to read in the summer, which are Goosebumps. Oh, this one's upside down. So, I watched Kayla from Books and Lala's video about like her childhood favorite books, and she's kind of reading the same books that she read during certain parts of her life. So she started off in 4th grade, so she kind of went back to her school in 4th grade and remembered what she was reading in 4th grade, and she read those books for like a little series that she's doing on her channel. So it kind of triggered a little something in me to do something similar. So I'm not trying to copy Kayla's idea, because she is the queen of ideas and I absolutely love her ideas. So I'm giving her 100% credit for igniting the nostalgia inside of me right now to read the books that I read when I was younger, that gave me that like that feeling of like totally being spooked, or just like, oh my god, this is the best book I ever read. So Goosebumps are some of the best books that I've ever read. These were my favorite books growing up, especially in the summer months when we took a break from school. I made my mom take me to the bookstore and I picked up a bunch of Goosebumps books, also from my library as well, because there were so many. So we didn't own all of them, but I definitely borrowed a lot from the library. But the summertime for kids is the time to do summer reading and just stay engaged with words, basically, and Goosebumps was there for me for that. I remember being a kid and, you know, you play outside, it's nice out, and then all of a sudden a thunderstorm will roll in, and Goosebumps, every time it thundered or stormed, I picked one of these up. So anytime it rains, it just reminds me of that feeling I got, that spooked feeling I got when I read Goosebumps by R.L. Stine. So this series is kind of inspired by that, and I'm definitely going to be reading these this summer. I highly recommend it. If you've never read Goosebumps before, they are a young reader group of books, but they are pretty spooky. Like, some of them are really, really spooky. So I can't wait to reread them and see, you know, where I'm at. There are some that I never read. There are some that I never got to, so I'd like to get to those. But some of these, the ones that I have here, are my favorite. So I'm gonna probably start with Say Cheese and Die and Welcome to Dead House. I'm gonna start with these two and get into that. So I highly recommend Goosebumps for a summer spook, and that's what this video is all about. So let's get into some of my recommendations for you guys to get into this summer, and it's gonna range from YA to adult and young readers, because I'm recommending these as well. So the first book I have to recommend for you guys is Campfire by Sean Charles. This I received last year at BookCon. It's an ARC. It was great. I mean, there's definitely some parts that I had issues with, but it's such a great summer scare. It's the perfect book to read by the campfire, or read at night, or by the pool, whatever you want to do, on the beach, but it is a super spooky summer read. It's about a group of people. The main character, her mother recently passed away, and it's about a group of friends and family, and they go on this trip every year into the mountains, I guess, and they set up a campfire, and every year they tell campfire ghost stories around the fire every night before they went to bed. But for some reason, every story that they tell, the stories are coming true as the days go on. So it's really spooky. It's kind of scary. It definitely has R.L. Stine feels to it. So if you are a fan of R.L. Stine, I would definitely pick up this book if you have not already. But this is one of the top books that I recommend for a perfect summer scare. The next book I have here to recommend to you is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book is all kinds of feels all in one, but it definitely has that campy feel that all those 90s movies had, 80s movies had, that were horror. It just has that campy feel, and I just live for it. My Best Friend's Exorcism is about a girl who's kind of like awkward and her best friend, and just something happens to her in the woods and they don't really know what happens, and all of a sudden her friend is possessed, and it's just crazy. It's just really crazy. It's funny. A lot of parts are funny. Some parts will make you cry. It's just a whole emotional roller coaster, and it's kind of scary. Like, some of the things that this girl goes through is kind of gross and scary and totally like, like, I love it. I love this book so much. I highly recommend it if you love that campy 90s feel, or 80s feel, obviously. It's just, it has, and the cover of it, the cover of the paperback is just amazing. And it just has all the elements to the story and little pictures here, just like how the old VHSs at like Blockbuster used to have. So I really love this book so much, and I love Grady Hendrix. He's great. He's a master of horror himself. I love how he incorporates some humor into his stories as well. They're not just so dark and scary and horrific. They are kind of funny. So he definitely has a humor side to him. The next book that I have here for you is Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. Now, this is a great book to read in the fall time, don't get me wrong, but this is a total ghost story, and for me, my nostalgia hits for the summertime is ghost stories. I love ghost stories in the summer for some reason. This is a haunted house story. It's about a couple of authors who were doing a publicity stunt with this website, and they wanted to go to one of the most haunted houses in the world, basically. So they go there to do this publicity thing, and it ends up turning out to be a fight for survival. It's haunting. This haunting goes home with these people. It's pretty crazy. You will love this book if you love horror, if you love ghost stories. It does get a little bit bloody at some points. This is an adult horror book, so just be warned that there are some definitely gory parts in this book, but I honestly highly suggest it if you love reading ghost stories by the pool, by the campfire, or on the beach. The book that I have here for you is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. Now, I wouldn't say that this is a horror in any way, but it is a little spooky, it is a little scary, and it's about a haunted town with a monster in the woods. So it's a good summer scare. So if you're someone who needs something on the lighter side of horror in the summer, something where you're not going to be completely spooked out all the time, this is a great story about these three girls, great diversity, and they need to figure out what's going on Sawkill Rock. So that's basically what this book is about, and they need to fight this monster because something keeps happening to the girls in this town, and they need to get to the bottom of it. So, and it's about time that they get to the bottom of it, because there's just so much folklore about this monster in the woods, and no one really knows if it's true, if it's not true, if it's a person doing it, if it really is a monster. So Sawkill Girls, highly recommend. I love Claire Legrand's writing in this book. She writes amazing books. Furyborn and Sawkill Girls were two of my favorite books of last year, so I highly recommend this if you need a lighter horror story that's a lot more character driven. That is Sawkill Girls. Next up, I have here Stephen King's Bag of Bones. Now, this is another ghost story. This does take place in the summer. So the main character goes to his summer home in Maine to finish writing a book. He hasn't written a book in years because his wife passed away, and he has been grieving. And he's still grieving, but his publicist needs him to put out a book. It's time, and he needs to go to his summer home to finish it. He cannot concentrate in his regular home to finish the book, so he felt his way to get inspired again was to go to him and his wife's summer home and finish this book. But a lot of things happen to this guy. His name is Mike, and he is one of my favorite Stephen King characters that I've read. I was completely shocked how much I loved this book when I read it. And it is the perfect ghost story by Stephen King. So if you're looking for a Stephen King to read this summer, I would pick up Bag of Bones. This book just has so much depth to it, just like all Stephen King books do. There are kind of like, not two storylines, but there's two parts of this story that you follow. There's just so much that happens, and everything kind of just ties into each other at the end. So it's great, and I highly suggest it for a summer read, because out of all Stephen King's books, they are very dark, and a lot of them I feel are not good summer reads because they're just so long and so drawn out, and some people don't want to read that. But this book was such a page turner. I think this is the best Stephen King summer read to recommend for people if they want to read Stephen King in the summer. It's just perfect. The atmosphere is perfect for the summer, and it's scary, so perfect summer scare right here. And lastly, I want to recommend some pretty nostalgic books for me as well. As I grew up, as I got a little bit older, Goosebumps, not that they weren't doing it for me anymore, but I needed something a little bit more intense in the horror side of things. And yes, I had picked up some Stephen King when I was younger, but some books that really stuck with me were Christopher Pike books, and I'll put a couple pictures up here as well. I tried to dig through my collection in the basement of old books that I had from when I was younger, and I could not find any of these, so I have to find them on eBay. I would love to read some of them this summer as well, but they are the perfect summer scares. Like I said about my best friend's exorcism, Christopher Pike books, he was the king of point horror. I don't know if any of you guys are my age, but point horror was a huge thing for my generation. For some of the older generations than me, even the kids that lived through the 90s, point horror was huge. And Christopher Pike put out books like this in that generation. And some of my favorites were Christopher Pike's Tales of Terror, which is a short story collection of some pretty spooky books. Every book that I read from Christopher Pike just reminds me of the summer. I think because I read them in the summer, but they just are the perfect summer reads because they're on the shorter side. They're not hefty novels. They go pretty quickly, and they just have that campy 80s, 90s feel to it. So his short story collection is a great way to get introduced to Christopher Pike's works. And I know Christopher Pike more recently had put out some YA books that were about vampires and stuff. I think it's called Bitten. It's called Thirst, his series. I haven't read it. I really don't have a desire to pick it up. I really want to read a lot of his older works that I read when I was younger, because why not? So a couple of the ones that I really liked are The Midnight Club, Witch, and The Grave. Now some of his most popular ones, I mean, all of his books were really popular, but I didn't read all of his books, so I'd love to get to read some other ones that I didn't read. So I'm gonna see if Barnes & Noble might have some. I don't really know, but I might have to go on eBay and get a couple copies of his, like, the 90s version, like these covers that I showed you. I want them for my collection. But Christopher Pike books are the perfect stories to read because they are like reading campfire stories. It just, the way that they pan out, it is like sitting by the fire and listening to one of your friends tell you a spooky story. So that's why I really enjoy his books. They're short, they're quick, they get right to the point, and they're spooky. So I can't wait to get my hands on some of those as well. So that's it. That's it for my first episode in this series of summer scares on my channel. And I will be putting more up as the summer goes on of book recommendations, movie recommendations, and anything that I really come across that I feel like is perfect summer scares content. So that is it. That's all I have for you guys today. And I'll be talking to you guys soon. Bye!